have probably heard the biblical story of Samson, but I'm not sure if many have heard the detailed story like this one. Today's story will show the troubles that one will go through when being drawn away from God and towards the lust and the desires of this world. We will also see that even through our rebellion, God's will still be done. This is where Samson's story begins. In Israel, there was a godly man named Manoah. He was from the tribe of Dan, which, if you didn't know, Dan was one of 12 tribes of Israel, which originated from Jacob, who God called Israel. And Jacob, or should I say Israel, had 12 sons, which became the 12 tribes of Israel. Manoah had a wife, but she was not able to have any children. One day, an angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife, and this angel prophesied to her and said, "You have not been able to have any children, but you will become pregnant and have a son. Don't drink any wine or any strong drinks. Don't eat any foods that is unclean, because you are pregnant, and you will have a son. He will be dedicated to God in a special way. He will be a Nazirite, so you must never cut his hair, and he has been chosen by God and will save the Israelite people from the power of the Philistines." See, if you didn't know, in the Hebrew Bible, the Nazirites were known for their long hair, and they would refrain from cutting it. Also, as we will see in this story and throughout the Bible, the Philistines were a very powerful army and were an enemy to Israel, as it seemed that they were always at war with each other. Then the woman, hearing this message from the angel, went to her husband and told him what had happened. She told Manoah that a man of God came to her and told her some things. She didn't ask him where he was from or even what his name was. She went on to tell him that this man told her about the son she would conceive and how he was chosen by God. By the way, to hopefully give a better understanding, Manoah and his wife had no clue that this man that came to her was an angel of the Lord. It just appeared to be a man who came out of nowhere to give her this message. Then Manoah, hearing what his wife told him, went and prayed to the Lord. He said, "Lord, I beg you, send this man of God to us again." But see, Manoah wanted to know how they should teach this boy who was about to be born. God heard Manoah's prayer. The angel of God came to the woman again. This time she was sitting in a field and her husband Manoah was not with her. So the woman immediately ran to her husband and said, "Hey, this man is back. The man who came to me the other day is here. Hey, quick, come, hurry. Come with me." Manoah got up and followed his wife, and when he came to the man, he said, "Are you the same man who spoke to my wife before?" The angel of the Lord told Manoah, "I am." So Manoah asked the man to tell him, what kind of life will this boy live and what shall he do? The angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Your wife must do everything I told her. She must not eat anything that grows on a grapevine. She must not drink any wine or strong drink. She must not eat any foods that are unclean. She must do everything that I have commanded her to do." After hearing what the man said, Manoah wanted the angel of the Lord to stay. He wanted to cook a young goat for him to eat as a gift to say thank you. Manoah didn't want the angel of the Lord to leave. The angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Even if you keep me from leaving, I will not eat your food. But if you want to prepare something, offer a burnt offering to the Lord." See, Manoah didn't understand that the man was really an angel of the Lord disguised as a man. Then Manoah asked the angel of the Lord what his name was. Manoah wanted to know so that they could honor him when the prophecy that this angel gave came to pass. The angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name? Is it too amazing for you to believe?" Then Manoah sacrificed a young goat on a rock altar. He offered the goat and the grain as a gift to the Lord and to this angel of the Lord. So as Manoah and his wife were watching this burnt offering being consumed in the fire, what happened next was truly shocking. As the flames went up to the sky from this altar, the angel of the Lord ascended up to heaven through this fire. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they immediately bowed down with their faces to the ground. They finally understood that this man that they had been talking to was really the angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord did not appear to Manoah and his wife again after that. Not too long after the woman had a boy, she named him Samson. He grew up and the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to work in Samson's life. As Samson got older, God blessed him with this incredible physical strength, kind of like Hercules or the Hulk, except for he didn't come from the pagan god Zeus, and he definitely wasn't green. Alright, moving on. Just like every superhero we read in comics or see on TV, they all had a source of power. Samson's long hair symbolized his source of his supernatural power, and not only was this a source of his incredible strength, but it was a symbol of his commitment to God's commandments as a Nazirite. And as you will see later, this symbol of strength would also become his weakness. Samson went down to the city of Timnah. This is where he saw a young Philistine woman. When he returned home, he would tell his father and mother that he saw this beautiful Philistine woman in Timnah and that he wanted his father and mother to go get her for him. Hearing this, his father and his mother were concerned that he had interest in a Philistine woman. So they said to Samson, "Surely there is a woman from Israel you can marry." See, it wasn't normal for a Philistine and an Israelite to be together, as they were pretty much always at war with one another, and it was just something that was really frowned upon. Israel's people stayed together because they were dubbed as God's chosen people. But Samson wasn't having it. He told his mother and father, "Go get that woman for me. She's the one I want." Samson's parents did not know that the Lord wanted this to actually happen. He was looking for a way to do something against the Philistines. God wanted this because the Philistines were ruling over the Israelites at that time. So God took the lust of Samson's heart and he turned it into something good and something that could be used to fight against the Philistines. Samson went down with his father and mother to the city of Timnah. When they got there, Samson went off on his own. As he was walking, a young lion suddenly roared and jumped at Samson. The Spirit of the Lord came on Samson with this great power, and he tore this lion apart with his bare hands. He did it in such a way that it seemed like it was too easy for him. But after this event, Samson did not tell his father or his mother or anyone, in fact, about what happened or what he had done. So Samson went down to the city and talked to this Philistine woman that he wanted to be with. Several days later, Samson came back to marry this woman. On his way, he went over to go look at the dead lion that he had killed just days before. He found a swarm of bees in its body. They had made some honey, so Samson got some of the honey with his hands and he walked along eating the honey. And he came to his parents and he gave them some of the honey too, and they ate it. But Samson did not tell his parents that he had taken the honey from the body of this dead lion that he had killed days before. Samson's father went down to see the Philistine woman. The custom was for the bridegroom to give a party, and these parties would usually last 7 days. So Samson gave a party. When the Philistines saw that he was having a party, they sent 30 men to be with him. Then Samson said to the 30 men, "I want to tell you a riddle. This party will last for 7 days. Try to find the answer during that time. If you can answer the riddle in that time, I will give you 30 linen shirts and 30 changes of clothes. But if you cannot find the answer, you must give me 30 linen shirts and 30 changes of clothes." So the 30 men agreed and asked Samson to tell them this riddle so they could try to answer it. Samson told them this riddle, and this is what he told them. "Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet." The 30 men tried for 3 days to find the answer, but they just couldn't. On the 4th day, men came to Samson's wife. They were angry and said, "Did you invite us here to make us look poor? You must trick your husband into telling us the answers to this riddle. If you don't get the answer for us, we will burn you and everyone in your father's house to death." So Samson's wife, after hearing this, was terrified of what the Philistines might do to her and her family. So she went to him and began crying, telling Samson that she feels like he hates her and doesn't really love her because he told her people a riddle and wouldn't give her the answer. So Samson told her, "Hey, look, I haven't even told my father or mother, so why should I tell you?" Samson's wife cried for the rest of the 7 days of this party. She kept bothering him about getting this answer to this riddle, and Samson, feeling guilty, gave in and finally gave her the answer to this riddle on the seventh day. Then, immediately hearing the answer, she went to tell her people and told them the answer to this riddle. So, before the sun went down on the seventh day of the party, the Philistine men had the answer. They came to Samson and said, "Hey, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson, shocked that they found out the answer, became very upset. The Spirit of the Lord came on Samson with great power. He went down to the city of Ashkelon, which was not far away, and killed 30 Philistine men. He took all of their clothes and property from the dead bodies and gave them to the men who had answered his riddle. Then he went to his father's house, and when he left, Samson's wife was given to his best man that was at the wedding. That's pretty messed up if you ask me. At the time of the wheat harvest, Samson went to go visit his wife. He took a young goat with him as a gift. He said, "I'm going to my wife's room." But her father would not let Samson go in. He said, I thought you hated her, so I let her marry the best man at the wedding." He goes on to say that her younger sister is more beautiful and that he should take her instead. Samson, hearing this, became so angry and told him that now he has a good reason to hurt him and that no one would blame him because of what he did. So Samson went out and caught 300 foxes. He took 2 foxes at a time and tied their tails together. Then he tied a torch between the tails of each pair of those foxes. He lit the torches that were between the foxes' tails and let them run through the grain fields of the Philistines. Doing this, he caused all the crops growing in the field to catch fire and burn. He also burned up all their vineyards and their olive trees. The Philistines, in shock that this was happening, asked, "Who did this? Who could do something like this to us, and why?" Then someone told them it was Samson that did this. The person went on to say that he did this because his father-in-law gave Samson's wife to the best man at his wedding. After hearing this, the Philistines burned Samson's wife and her father to death because they caused this great commotion. Then Samson said to the Philistines, "You did this bad thing to me, so now I'm going to do bad things to you, and then I'll be finished with you." Samson attacked the Philistines and killed many of them. Then after that, he stayed in a cave in a place named the Rock of Edom. The Philistines went to the land of Judah and stopped near a place named Lehi. This is where their army camped. Then men of the tribe of Judah came to the Philistine soldiers and asked them why they had come to fight them. They answered and told them that they had came to get Samson and that they wanted him to be their prisoner. They wanted to punish him for what he did to the Philistine people. Then 3,000 men from the tribe of Judah went to the cave near the Rock of Edom and said to Samson, "What have you done to us? Don't you know that the Philistines rule over us?" Samson answered them, saying that he only punished them for what they did to him. Then they said to Samson that they were going to tie him up and give him over to the Philistines. Samson agreed to let them take him, but only if they wouldn't hurt him. See, Samson really cared for his people and never wanted to hurt them or cause trouble for them, even though he did. After agreeing with Samson's terms, they grabbed the rope and tied him up and led him out of the cave and to the place called Lehi. This is where the Philistines had came to get him. The Philistines, seeing the men of Judah bringing Samson, leaped up and shouted for joy, seeing that Samson was finally captured and that now the Philistines was going to make him his prisoner. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Samson with great power. Samson broke the ropes, and they were like burning strings falling from his arms, and the ropes on his hands seemed to just melt away. Samson found a jawbone of a dead donkey that was lying on the ground near where he was, and he killed 1,000 Philistine men with it. Then after he was done, Samson shouted and said, "With a donkey's jawbone I killed 1,000 men. With a donkey's jawbone I piled them in a tall pile." When Samson finished speaking, he threw the jawbone down. Samson became thirsty, so he cried to the Lord and he says, I am your servant. You gave me this great victory. Please don't let me die from thirst now. Please don't let me be captured by men who are not even circumcised. Which, if you didn't know, back in the day, the men who were circumcised, which this started in the days of Abraham, were known to be God's people, and those who were not circumcised were not God's people. After Samson prayed and pleaded to the Lord for water, God made a hole that was in the ground near him crack open, and water came out. Samson drank the water, and after doing, he felt better. He felt strong again. He was like, I'm great, strong, and I can conquer, and I can go back to doing what I was doing. No, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. Okay, moving on. So Samson named the water spring in Hakor, which I believe that's how it says. If not, just let me know in the comments below. But it's still there today in Lehi. So God used Samson as a judge for the Israelites for 20 years during the time of the Philistines. One day, Samson went to the city of Gaza. He saw a prostitute there and went in to stay the night with her. Someone told the people of Gaza that Samson was in the city. The people hearing this wanted to kill him, so they surrounded the city and they hid near the city gate, which was shut and locked that no one could enter or leave. And they waited all night for him. They were very quiet all night long. They had said to each other, when morning comes, we will kill Samson. We'll kill him. But Samson only stayed with the prostitute until midnight. Then he got up and grabbed the doors of the city gate and pulled them loose from the wall. He pulled down the doors, the two posts, and the bars that locked the doors shut. He put them on his shoulder and carried them onto the top of the hill near the city of Hebron. No matter how hard they tried, they were not able to contain nor capture Samson to kill him. So it was just a constant journey for the Philistine people, coming up with ways and strategies to capture Samson and kill him. They just weren't able to do it because he was just too dang strong. He was too strong. Later on, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who was from Sorek Valley, which was located between the ancient Philistines and the city of Dan. The rulers of the Philistines sought out ways to destroy Samson, as we were just discussing. So they went to Delilah and said, we want to know what makes Samson so strong. They go on to tell her that she needed her to trick him into telling her what his secret is. Why is he so strong? How can we defeat him? Doing this, they could finally know how to capture and destroy Samson. They offered her 28 pounds of silver, which was a lot of money. It's a lot of money. A lot for deception. A lot for killing the man of God. With Delilah's greed, she agreed to do what the Philistines wanted. So when Delilah was with Samson, she asked him why he was so strong and how could someone tie him up and make him helpless. Samson answered by saying that someone would have to tie him up with 7 fresh new bowstrings. If they did that, he would be as weak as any other man. Then the rulers of the Philistines brought 7 fresh new bowstrings to Delilah, and she tied Samson with these bowstrings. Some men were hiding in the next room. So Delilah said to Samson, Samson, the Philistine men are going to capture you. But Samson easily broke the bowstrings, and they snapped like string when he put himself close to an open flame. So the bowstrings tied him up. They just didn't make him stupid. He just used the fire to help bust him out. So that day, the Philistines did not find out the secret of Samson's strength. Then Delilah, upset with Samson, said, you lied to me. You made me look foolish. Please tell me the truth. How could someone tie you up? Samson said that someone would have to tie him up with new ropes. They would have to tie him with ropes that have not been used before. If someone did that, he would become as weak as any other man. So Delilah, of course, took some new ropes and tied up Samson. Some men were hiding in the next room like they were before, and then Delilah called out to him and said, Samson, Samson, the Philistine men are going to capture you. But he broke out of the ropes really easily. Then Delilah said to Samson, you lied to me again. You made me look foolish. Now tell me, how could someone tie you up and stop lying to me? Samson said to her, if she would just use the loom to weave 7 braids of his hair on his head and tighten it with a pin, he would become as weak as any other man. Now, a loom was a tool used to weave hair. Later, as Samson went to sleep, Delilah used the loom to weave the 7 braids of hair on his head. Then Delilah fastened the loom to the ground with the tent pegs. Again, she called out to him, Samson, Samson, the Philistine men are going to capture you. Samson pulled out the tent pegs and the looms, and he was able to break free. Then Delilah said, Samson, how can you say you love me when you don't even trust me? You refuse to tell me your secret, probably for a good reason. I don't know what was going through he had to know something. What do you think? Delilah goes on and says, you haven't told me the secret of your great strength. She kept bothering Samson day after day. He got so tired of her asking him about his secret that he felt like he was going to die because she kept bugging him to death. Finally, Samson told Delilah everything. He goes on to say that he had never had his hair cut and that he was dedicated to God before he was even born. He said if someone shaved his head, he would surely lose his strength and he would become weak as any other man. Delilah saw that Samson had told her his secret finally. She sent a message to the rulers of Philistine and she said, come back again. Samson has finally told me everything. So the rulers of the Philistines came back and brought the money that they had promised to give her. Delilah got Samson to go to sleep with his head lying in her lap. Then she called in a man to shave off the 7 braids of Samson's hair. In this way, she made Samson weak, and his strength left him. Then Delilah called out to him, Samson! Samson, the Philistine men are coming to capture you. He woke up and thought to himself that he will escape as he did before and free himself. But Samson did not know that the Lord had left him. The Philistine men captured Samson. They tore out his eyes and they took him down to the city of Gaza. Samson had no more strength. His super strength was gone. He was just as any other man. He was weak and he was bound up, and God had left him, so he didn't have that power because they shaved his head. Then the Philistines, they put chains on him to keep him from running away, and they put him in a prison and made him work grinding grain. But as time went on, his hair began to grow again. The Philistine rulers came together to celebrate. They were going to offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon. They said, our God, help us defeat Samson, our enemy. When the Philistines saw Samson, they praised their God. They said that this man destroyed our people, and he killed many of our people. But our God helped take out our enemy. See, if you didn't know, Dagon is the god of crop fertility and is worshipped extensively throughout the Middle East. Dagon was the Hebrew common noun for grain, and it's said that Dagon was the inventor of the plow. The people were having a good time at this celebration. They said out loud that they should bring Samson out so that they could make fun of him and poke fun and mock him. So they brought Samson from the prison and made fun of him. They made him stand between these 2 columns in the temple of their god Dagon. A servant was holding his hand, and Samson said to the servant, put me where I can feel the columns that hold this temple up. I want to lean against them. The temple was crowded with men and women, and all the Philistine rulers were there. There were about 3,000 men and women on the roof of this temple, and they were laughing and making fun of Samson. Samson, as he was standing there blind because he had his eyes gouged out when they caught him, was just standing there leaning against these columns or resting his hands against these columns, and he started to pray to the Lord. He said, Lord God, remember me. God, please give me strength one more time. Let me do this one thing to punish these Philistines for tearing out both of my eyes. Then Samson took hold of the 2 columns in the center of the temple that supported the whole temple. He braced himself between the 2 columns, and one column was at his right side and the other was at his left side. And Samson said, let me die with these Philistines. Then he pushed as hard as he could, and the temple fell on the rulers and everyone in it. In doing this, Samson killed more Philistines in that temple than he did when he was alive. Samson's brothers and all the people in his father's family went down to get his body. They brought him back and buried him in his father's tomb, which is between the cities of Zorah and Eshtaol. Samson was a judge for the Israelites for 20 years. See, even through our rebellion, God can still use us to get his will done. Am I saying that it's okay to rebel because God will still use us? No, absolutely not. God's will always be done. Samson could have probably had a different life if he had chose to follow God more than to rebel and follow his flesh, but we can really learn from this story as it exposes people who will use us to get what they want and how we should be very careful who we tell our God-given secrets to, as the enemy is always seeking ways to destroy us. We will also learn that we need to rely on God's strength and being obedient to God's commandments and will for our life. That does it for another biblical story. Hit that thumbs up. Until next time, God bless.